Hello Triple B presenters, this is a tutorial about pre-recording a program to go to air on Triple BFM remotely if you are in isolation or in lockdown or so on and so forth. You're going to need a few things for this. Basically you'll need a capable computer for using the simplest of the apps, Audacity. The computer you require is not very strong at all. I can do this on a 10-year-old laptop that you might pay a few $100s for off eBay. So computer horsepower is not very particularly important for Audacity. You have other alternatives for audio editing apps though. If you're a beginner, I recommend Audacity. If you're a more advanced user, and you have some experience with more sophisticated audio apps, but you don't own one, like say a Cubase or a Pro Tools or an Audition or some such thing. The other alternative is a thing called Traction Waveform. Traction Waveform supports VST plugins and ASIO drivers and some of the more cooler stuff, but possibly requires a slightly stronger computer to run it on, more modern computer to run it. So I won't talk too much about Traction Waveform other than to say that it exists and it can be very useful for the more sophisticated audio editors and production people. For absolute beginners, download Audacity. As you can see here, if I just go back a step, I've Googled Audacity. It's shown me the audacityteam.org site, which is where we want to download it from, not from any other third party if we can possibly help it. We want to go straight to the Audacity site and get it from them. We're going to go into the downloads and you're going to download the version of Audacity for your operating system. I'm a Windows person, but obviously it comes for Mac and Linux, as does Waveform. Waveform is also Apple, Windows and Linux. I'm not going to go through the installation procedure. It's pretty straightforward. Basically, download it, click on the exe, and click OK all the way through, and it'll be installed. So that's your editing app on your computer. The other thing you're going to need is, if you want to do voiceovers, you're going to need some kind of microphone. So these can come in a couple different forms. Today I'm using a USB audio interface with just sort of a regular microphone plugged in with a mic cable. The other alternatives include USB type microphones. I believe a few people in the station have those. Things like the Blue Yeti or the Yeti and Rode make a very nice USB microphone. And there's a few other companies and stuff you can get. USB style microphones, and they're fairly straightforward. Normally they're a condenser style microphone, which are fairly sensitive, and they're sensitive to room acoustics, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But generally you plug one of those into your computer and you plug headphones into the side of it, and that's all it is. So they're fairly straightforward and usually fairly affordable, maybe $100 or more. My Yamaha Audiogram 3 is a fairly old interface. It's only USB 1, but they're around, and you can get them on eBay for under $100. So if you already own a microphone and a cable from something else, like a reasonable microphone, of course, then those interfaces are fairly cheap, and they most weeks they're on eBay for under $100, so they're an option. Otherwise, buy a fresh, brand new audio interface if you wish, Focusrite or a Yamaha or a Steinberg or a Roland, or there's lots of them to choose from. But they don't need to be expensive. Not for this job. We're just doing voiceovers. It's not like we're going to record a band. We don't need heaps of channels, so on and so forth. So the simplest audio interface will probably be adequate. All right, let's move on. That was equipment and hardware. All right, that's so you have a computer, you have an app, you have your microphone. One other thing is the ability to transfer files from your place, wherever you are, to the station and vice versa. So for that, you have a few options. I recommend Google Drive for this particular application. Google Drive. So all you need to do is create a Google email account. You know, it could be for this job. You might call it, I don't know, name/pre-records, BBBfm or something, at gmail.com. It could be dedicated. You may already have a Gmail account, and you can use that as well. But what Gmail allows you is, once you have a Gmail account, you get it for free. With that, you get a Google Drive space. Google Drive space is routinely 15 gigabytes of free cloud storage, as you can see over here. 15 gigabytes of storage in the cloud for free, just for having a Gmail account, which is pretty awesome, I think. So you would use this Gmail account basically once you've this Google Drive, once you've prepared your show and mixed it down, rendered it, as we say, given it all the right file names, so on and so forth. You're going to upload this to your Google Drive and then share it to the radio station's email address, production email address, which is this email address over here, production@BBBfm@gmail. The other situation is that you will want to use the up-to-date running sheet and up-to-date production folder to assemble your show, so that you can play the right sponsors and possibly even the community calendar if you're really onto it. In order to get hold of that, what you need to do is to email me on this production email address and request that for me to share with you the production folder, which you can see down here. This is our production folder. So basically, I would go into there, I would hit share, and put your email address on this list, so that whenever you want to make a show, you basically go into your Google Drive, and hopefully I have updated a current version of the production folder and running sheets, and you will be able to use that. If you find that it's not current and that it's out of date, then you obviously would need to poke me and just fire me an email or a text message to say, hey, Benno, can you update that for me, because I need to make a show this week. Let's get out of there. Right, so there's some of the sort of setup-y bits that you need. So you've got Audacity, you've got a microphone, you've got your Gmail account and your Google Drive setup. These are the basic foundation elements. Rightio, let's just have a bit of a quick walk through Audacity here. Now that once you've got Audacity installed and you've opened it up, you'll see this window here. This is our main window for Audacity. I'm not going to set it to fill the screen, because I'm going to actually drag things in from folders from outside. That's how the easiest way I've found to do that. There is an import button here, but we won't worry about that. Easiest way is just to drag stuff in. So, but before we do that, let's just go through these buttons, everything you see here on the screen. We have our transport section here, what we call transport. So this is all your play, stop, pause, record, looping, and moving our cursor, or our player head, as I sometimes call it, the playhead, to the start or the finish of what we're working on. Over here we have a handful of buttons that affect what our arrow can do. So this is a selection tool for just sort of grabbing blocks and moving them around. This is our envelope tool, mostly used for modifying volumes inside of a block. Then we have our drawing tool, our zooming tool. The zooming part is very useful to actually use hotkeys. I'll get to the hotkeys in a little while. And we have our multi-tool. This here is our recording level monitor for inputs that are coming into Audacity. In this case, it's my microphone. If I turn it on, you can see the action bouncing around on the microphone. I've got my microphone loud enough that I'm getting about -12 most of the time. That's a pretty good recording volume. If I hit record, it will create a track for me. In this case, I've got it set to mono, and we can see. You'll see a visual representation of this wave, this sound. We call it a waveform. you can see that it's well within the boundaries of the sides of the of that little sort of strip that we're recording into. If we must be careful not to bash into the sides. If it's too loud and we're getting red over here, we're hitting 0 and we're getting red, and you can see the waveform bashing into the sides, we're too loud. We need to back off. It's very important for digital recording that we record within the boundaries of the wave file. We can edit it for volume later. We just have to get a clean recording inside the boundaries of the waveform. Sorry. Let's stop that. Okay. Now, in our view, we have our zoom buttons, and you notice here that we have a range of hotkeys. So let's using Control 1, 2, and 3. These are some of the coolest ones. Zoom to selection, zoom, toggle in and out. So I'm going to use Control 3 here to zoom out. And now we can see the whole thing that I've got. Now if I hit play, let's go back to the start. We use our return to the start button, and you'll see that that's moved this thing here. You notice how it'll play from, if I move around this line, I select here, we need to back off. It'll play from that spot. So we'll just go back to the start. You'll hear my voice playing back here, and then we'll see that in our meter over here. This is our output meter. You'll see a visual representation of this wave, this sound. All right, output meter. So you can see how loud everything is. You'll find that there is enormous variation in music files, and you may need to adjust some volumes sometimes, and you need to at least know that nothing is clipping and nothing is overloading and going and hitting the 0. This is all very important for digital recording and digital editing. Have to stay in bounds. Once you're out of bounds, the file will have nasty clicks and glitches, and you don't want that. So let's just get rid of this for a second. So let's say, for example, the way I like to go about it is I like to dump a lot of songs in, and then sort of go back and shuffle them around, and then bring in stingers and sponsors and things like that at regular intervals. So a fairly normal pattern for a show might be, in this case, I've collected a folder of songs out of my library that I'm going to use for this show. So you don't have to do that. You could just drag songs from your library if you wanted. Obviously, you don't want to delete them from your library or remove them from your library. But this is the cool part of Audacity: is if I have this open like this, make that a bit smaller, and I just drag a file in. All right, Audacity's got it. The file's still here in the folder. Nothing moved. All well and good. So let's drag in a few as an example. Use Control 3 to zoom out a bit, give myself some more space. Now, what I like to do is I like to rename this folder, this track rather, to I'm going to call it stereo number 1. This is because I'm going to use 2 tracks for my music, and I'm going to use another track for my voice, and I'm going to use another track for my stingers. You might ask why, but soon you will see. Right, so my next song I'm going to drag in, and you'll see that it creates another track, and I'm going to change the name of that track to be stereo number 2. Right. Do that again. Consistent capitals. Now, let's zoom out. Control 3. Right. Now, in this top little bar at the bottom here, you'll notice that the icon of the mouse changes a little bit. It goes from here being a selector tool that I have selected, so I can find spots in there and listen to them. But when I go up here to this top part of this little block, it turns into a hand, which allows me to drag it, which is awesome. Old Audacity never had that. So new Audacity is great, pretty much just for that. Now, what happens is So let's zoom out again. Give yourself some space. Obviously, this thing's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger as we go. So I'm going to shrink these a little bit so I can see more of them on the screen. Let's bring in songs. Get back out to there again. Oh, sorry. Control 3. Give myself some room. Now, notice when I drag that in, it has created another track for it. But I kind of want it to be over here with this track. Because these are both stereo files, I can drag them around and drag them across the tracks. I'm going to put that in there, and I'm going to get rid of this because I don't want it. So that becomes an ongoing bit of a process there. I'm going to put a song in. Actually, if I drop that in there, what does it do? No, see, if I try and drop it on another track, it just puts it into its own track. So we have to sort of go through this process where I'm bringing in songs, moving them where I want them to be, and then getting rid of that track that it made. Bring that in. What happens when I slide along? Oh, up to there. Zoom out a bit so I can go along like that. Right. So as you can see, I've got the something that indicates what the song is, this is actually the file name, not the meta tag in this, but most of my file names resemble the meta tags. I've got a strange mixture of music in here. So what we might do is just dump in a few, and then I'll drag them, and I'll get rid of all those tracks. So grab this guy. Oh, I got him. That one. That one. And drag them all in. Boom. And it's gonna work on them all. Because it's this little bit of work it's doing here is mostly to generate this visual waveform that it's making. Right. Zoom out. Tracks. So I'm not real. So what I'm going to do here is, as I do this, I'm going to chuck him in there, and I'm going to zigzag him across. I need a little bit more screen here so that I can see. Doesn't matter. Grab that, drag it over here. Get rid of you. Drag him over here. Get rid of you. Drag him over here. Get rid of you. Drag him over here. That's a long one, that one. Get rid of you. Ooh, now, Supper's Wordy, that's a huge song. Right. So, for those of you who are prog rock people, this is Genesis from the 70s, from their one of their live albums. Guy in Germany gave me that. Get rid of that. All right, let's zoom out a bit. And then we've got a local artist song here by Horrorhead. So as you can see, when we zoom out enough, we start kind of not being able to see all of our track titles, but that's okay because when we zoom in, we'll be able to see what it is. That's probably enough songs to demonstrate this for now. All right. Because I've got a few huge, really big songs in here, it actually goes more than an hour. These two are really long. I think that one's like 20 minutes or something. All right, we've got songs in. Next step, I'm going to introduce some station IDs and some sponsorships. So in my station promos, for example, we have our promos and stings. I think we're all familiar with the most of the radio stations' promos and stings and stuff. Here we go. Most of these sort of file names are fairly familiar to us. So what I'm going to do is say, for example, in theory, I would have a show intro. I haven't actually ever, because I'm on the wine show, it already has its own show intro, but this is not a wine show. So if you were basically recreating your standard genre music show, hopefully you have some form of intro, or perhaps, this is an opportunity for you to come up with one. And because you're learning how to edit here, you can make one for yourself. So I'm going to start my show with the gunshot because I like the gunshot. Now, what happens though is that some of these stingers are in mono and some of these stingers are in stereo. And when you drag them in, you'll notice that stereo and mono tracks cannot coexist in the same track. So we may actually require 2 tracks for sponsors and stingers. So let's drag in the gunshot and see what we get. What's all that about? Where are we? Where did it go? Let's zoom in. Control 1. Oh, we can go a long way in there. Zoom back out again. Oh, gone too far. What happened there? Why can't I see you, gunshot? Why didn't you go to the start? Ah, there it is. Right. So the gunshot is very small, right? Let's zoom out a bit. So small that it almost disappears from the screen when I put it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that there. I'm actually going to have it overlap. Here's one of the tricks you can do. Let's notice how this particular song has a kind of quiet, slow introduction. Some songs start immediately, and this wouldn't work very well. But because this one's got like a bit of a slow intro, I can overlap them and see what this sounds like. Back to the start with the cursor.
B, B, B.
All right, so that's fine. All right. So let's zoom out a little bit, so I can see my songs. Right, so in this case, we're beginning to start this sort of process of overlapping things or just lining up songs. So if in this case, I'll listen to these sort of how one ends and how the other one starts, for example. I'm going to put my selector tool here where I want to listen to it. I can use the play button, or the space bar is actually the hotkey for start and stop, play and stop. So I tend to just use the space bar. Alright, so this has got like a long chunk of silence on the end. So let's stop. Let's overlap this one appropriately so that when that stops, this one is beginning. Because this one has kind of also a strange sort of fade in intro, and that one has a bit of a quiet fade out intro. Let's overlap them and see what happens. Cool. All right. Those two songs can handle a tiny hint of overlap here. My understanding is that there's actually policy at some stations not to overlap songs, but you will hear it, and you'll hear it. You'll hear some of the other guys who produce shows at the radio station who do it, to beautiful artistic effect. Some songs just complement one another and blend magically. That's just how it is. So don't be afraid to experiment with that. The order of your songs in your show might be determined by how each sort of beginning and finish lines up and goes together, blends or doesn't blend. That's a be almost real DJing sort of thoughts there. So in this case, I'm just going to move to the sort of the end of the next song, the starting end of the next song. This is some pretty heavy stuff I'm playing here because I'm a metal person. So we'll just see how this one ends. It's got that same weird noise as an outro. This one has, again, a slow fade-in intro. So here, I might choose to, for example, drop in another stinger, for example. So I'm going to go back to my stings. I'm going to grab something like something very short, like this the Triple B zip boom, and then I'm going to drop it here. It's taken it all the way back to the start, I assume. Oh, and it's very small again and hard to see. So we'll go back to here. Where were we? We're going to overlap I Whisper and I Monarch here. All right, so that's all right. And then I'm going to zoom in so I can see what I'm up to. Control 1, Control 1. All right, now here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in here so it kind of overlaps this fade out and this fade in. And just sort of fill up the space a bit so that it doesn't sound like it gets really quiet between the songs. So let's just see how that sounds. Oh, press play. Triple B, Triple B, Triple B, Triple B, Triple B. All right, so that's a fairly heavy tune, but did you notice that it on the output side, it's bashed the ceiling, as it were. It's hit 0. It's a little bit too loud for this file. So with my envelope tool, I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to adjust that volume a little bit. Right, and I bring it back, so it's inside the boundaries, and I can see that it's inside the boundaries. Right. Let's just test that again. Go back to select. Whoops. So it gets pretty hot, but it didn't actually clip it. So that's kind of, sometimes an individual song is going to need a tiny bit of adjustment. I might just have a look. This one here, you can see visually, is also very loud. It might be clipping. I'll just go back in here for a bit. Oh, clear. Very heavy tunes, but that one is inside, right? So when it comes to music, as you can see, it's kind of got this flat boundary to it because it's been produced that way. This is what we call, it's been heavily compressed in its mastering stages to be loud. So it goes right out to the boundary but doesn't cross it. For some reason, my other one here, it actually crossed the boundaries, and so I've used my envelope tool to adjust that volume just a little tiny bit. I might just pull this one down a little bit too, just because it's a little bit crazy for volume. Pull that in like one click, just to tuck it in there. All right. Going on, moving on. You get the idea. I'm gonna put my thing here. I'm gonna listen to this finish, and then I'm gonna decide where I want my next one to start, which will be just inside the end of that one. Stark contrast. That's what the random show is all about. Let's just zoom out a bit. You get the idea here. This is inserting the sort of stingers and station promos and stuff in between songs as we go. So the next concept is, let's say I wanted to have I want to back and ounce a bit of that. What I might do is I'm going to, this is a bit of an experiment, mute that, and I'm going to mute that, get rid of all those tracks, and then we're going to go get rid of that. I want to shrink this one so that I can see what's going on. Yoink. And I'll shrink him, and I'll shrink him. See, we have when that little up and down arrow appears between the boundaries of the tracks, that allows me to stretch the size of the track. Pardon me, coffee burp. Now, let's say I want to have an introduction or I'm going to back announce, pre-announce songs, we're going to record some voiceover. If you want to announce who we are at the start of our show, of course, we're going to record some voiceover. Now, if I set my marker here, right, and then what I want to do is, when I hit record, it's going to create a new mono track for me to record into. But let's just see where that lands. If I hit record, aha, right. So because I kind of muted out everything else, and there's nothing to interfere with it, it's going to allow me to record in this position. Just watch this though. I'm going to stop. If I turn all these on, whoops, undo that. You have many undos. I just accidentally deleted a track instead of hitting unmute. Now, if I hit record here with that track alive, let's see what happens. I'll put that there. And stop. If I put it here, I hit play. Ooh. So you notice how it didn't record where I put the cursor. If I put that here, and I hit record. Ah, it does record where I put the cursor. Alright, so that's another new aspect of Audacity. It used to always push it to the end of the thing to do that, unless that was a setting that I never found. So let's just stop there, and let's get rid of those two. We're going to use our undo, which is universal undo. In Windows is always Control Z, so let's just go Control Z, undo that recording, undo that recording, undo that recording, undo making that track. So now everything's muted because that way I can record sort of unaffected by what's going on in the other tracks. Because what I sort of want to do is possibly, let's say I want to record. Let's just do a. Oh, hello, text messages. How was it? Believe it or not, a presenter asking me about pre-recorded shows. Anyway, so let's say I've played 3 songs. I want to back announce. We've got a pretty stark contrast between these 3 songs and that 3 songs, so that's probably a good spot to have a bit of a break and back announce. So I'm going to put my cursor here, where I want it to be, roughly. It's going to create a new track below here when I hit record, and we're going to say something like, good afternoon, Triple B radio listeners. My name is Ben, and you are listening to The Random Show today here on Triple BBFm 89.1. The last couple of songs we've heard have included The Truth and Other Lies by Australian group Cog, I Monarch by a group called Hate Eternal from the United States, it's regarded in some circles as potentially the heaviest song ever. And another song, also particularly spectacularly heavy, by one of their touring mates, another band called Nile, also from the United States, from Carolina, with a track called I Whisper in the Ear of the Dead. Coming up, we're going to go in a slightly different direction. With this next song is, I believe it's from the album Fashion Nugget, by a band called Cake. Stick around on Triple BFM Radio. All right, let's have a bit of a listen back to see what that sounds like. We should see it playing back in our playback menus up here. Spacebar. Good afternoon, Triple B radio listeners. My name is Ben, and you are listening to The Random Show today here on Triple BFM 89.1. The last couple of songs we've heard have included The Truth and Other Lies by Australian group Cog. Now, let's say, for example, I decided that I'll happily record it this quiet because I'm well within the boundaries. But let's say I want it to be a little bit louder in the track. Obviously, we have our envelope button, but that's probably at maximum already. So on the entire track itself, because my recordings volumes will all be the same, I can actually turn the whole track up. So let's just have a go at that. I'll hit play again. And this slider over here is the track volume or gain. And we'll start winding it up and see what happens with our meter. I wind it up too loud so that it hits the red, and then I'll back it off a bit. Good afternoon, Triple B radio listeners. My name is Ben, and you are listening to The Random Show today here on Triple BBFm 89.1. The last couple of songs we've heard have included The Truth and Other Lies by Australian group Cog, I Monarch by a group called Hate Eternal from the United States, it's regarded in some circles as potentially the heaviest song ever. And another song, also particularly spectacularly heavy, by one of their touring mates, another band called Nile, also from the United States, from Carolina, with a track called I Whisper in the Ear of the Dead. Coming up, we're going to go in a slightly different direction. With this next song is, I believe it's from the album Fashion Nugget by a band called Cake. Stick around on Triple BFM Radio. Cool, we've got a little voice chunk in there. Now I'm going to arrange the tracks around that accordingly. So let's zoom in here a bit. Control 1. Now I want my next track that follows this, the one I just pre-announced, to go a bit later. And I want this track. Just notice here this little yellow line that appears that shows me that I'm lined up with the end of that. That's a useful little thing. In this case, I'm going to this song's if I turn that back on again, I'll unmute that. This song has a bit of a sort of a spooky long outro, but it's still pretty loud. So I might just overlap that a little tiny bit. I could have also, of course, edit this as well. Yeah, or slice it. Oh, what's this actually? What's that? That's the cutting tool. All right. So, for example, if I zoom in, let's say I wanted to chop the end off of this because I've got a bit of an intro here that I don't want. Let's zoom in. I put the thing in the spot where I want to cut it. I'm going to use my hotkey that we talked about earlier in edit. Split here, right? The hotkey is Control I. So I'm going to just put my cursor there. I'm going to use Control I. All right, and now it's cut it into two blocks. Now this block, I'm going to delete with, I think I just hit the delete button, and I do. Right, so hotkey for deleting is delete. Then I'm going to grab that, and I'm going to line it up. I'm going to overlap a little bit because I've got a bit of silence on the end of this song. Now listen back and see how that lines up. Good afternoon, Triple B radio listener. All right, I'm happy with that. So let's zoom out again. Control 3. We're going to unmute my other music track again. Use our yellow line to line us up. Stick around on Triple BFM Radio. All right, that's all sweet. Nicely lined up. So this is kind of the process, is you just kind of dump all the stuff in the timeline, and then you're going to go along and carefully line up things so that they overlap nicely. Again, we see this track is spectacularly loud. Let's watch what happens when it goes through the meters. Ooh. Stick around.
Oh, yeah. It's true.
So we see straight away we're bashing the limiter, or bashing the limit. We're over the limit. I'm going to need to quieten that down a little bit. I'm going to use my envelope tool. I'm going to come in here. Ooh. I'm just going to pull it back in until I can see that it's inside the boundaries. And then I'm going to test it again.
Oh, yeah. It's true.
So we're right up to the limit there, but we're not actually triggering the red light at the top, which indicates that we're going over. So again, volume control may need be a thing for lots of different tracks. All right, let's head over here. All right, so I'm going to put a stinger in here between these two songs. Now, when I bring that file in, it'll want to it'll want to put it down the bottom, A, and it'll want to put it at the start, I think, which can be a little bit annoying sometimes. So sometimes when you bring in a new file, it won't land where you drop it. It'll land miles away, and you have to drag it back to where you want it. So in this case, let's go for something a bit longer. Like, this is more like a station promo than a stinger. But I like this one. This is a classic. This is one of my favorites. So let's drop it in here. But okay, notice what happened to the whole window. So Audacity took me back out to basically full screen again, so that I could go and find that track. We were going to go at the end of this Beck song. We're going to go at the end of Out the Drive-In. So I'm going to drag that. Oh, hang on. What? I may have to zoom in so I can get a grip on it. One. Back to start. Just out here past this, all this stuff. At the drive-in is where we're going to finish. Now it should be giving me yellow lines so I can line it up. There it is. And then we're going to use this, and it'll give me a yellow line that lines me up. Now let's play that bit and
wormed our way through distant earth. Hey!
Radio operational. Tuning in progress. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have radio. Triple B.
actually I don't want that in that. I want to put that. It's a stereo stinger, so you can share this folder, this track up here with my stereo stingers, which I have neglected to name. Let's call that we'll call that promo ST because it's stereo. I don't want that one anymore. Delete it. This one here is my voiceover track, and it's mono, but it doesn't matter. We're just going to call it voiceover. Right. So let's unmute that. Oh. Stick around on Triple BFM radio. Stop.
Radio operational. Tuning in progress. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have radio. Triple B.
Cool. So they're all overlapping nicely. Why don't we record one more example of a voiceover part? Back announce, pre-announce. If we can record into this folder, that is what I'll be seeking. So let's just have a look here. We've got, what is that? Cake with I Bombed Korea at the drive-in. With what's called Pattern Against User. And Beck's It's All in Your Mind, just to remind myself exactly what we just did. So I'm going to mute those so that it doesn't interfere with what I'm trying to record now. And then I'm going to hit record. Hello, Triple B listeners. You have just been listening to the last 3 songs we just heard. Well, actually, stop. So now it comes I'm just remembered something that some people prefer to announce in reverse order, like the last song you heard followed by the song before that, followed by the song before that. Or you obviously could just explain the order of songs that you are announcing in. So let's try again. Let's go. So 3 songs back, we just heard I Bombed Korea by Cake. This is an interesting song. And then we have Pattern Against User by At the Drive-In. Followed by It's All in Your Mind by Beck from his album Sea Change. Coming up, we're going heavy again. We're going back to Cannibal Corpse, the seminal death metal band from Florida, with a short, sharp one from their album Gallery of Suicide. Now, all right, I realised I just had stumbled on a word in there, right? So why don't we zoom in and edit this? I'm going to zoom in with my Control 1, Control 1, Control 1. I'm just going to listen back to what I just did then, because I made a mistake in the middle of that. So, 3 songs back, we just heard I Bombed Korea by Cake. This is an interesting song. And then we have Pattern Against User by At the Drive-In. This is an interesting song. And then we have Pattern Against User by At the Drive-In. Followed by It's All in Your Mind. All right, so that's mashed in a way that I'm not going to be able to edit that. I didn't actually go back and say it properly at all, and so I'm going to have to re-record that part because I'm not going to be able to edit that neatly. So let's delete this whole thing and record that one more time. Rightio, you are listening to BBBfm Community Radio. A couple songs back, we heard I Bombed Korea by the band Cake from the United States, followed by Pattern Against User, which is a song by At the Drive-In, and then Beck from his album Sea Change, It's All in Your Mind. Coming up, we're going heavy again. We're going back to Florida death metal's fathers of death metal, Cannibal Corpse, from their album Gallery of Suicide. You're listening to BBBfm Community Radio. All right, that one was better. So let's zoom out again and line them up. I think we can overlap that a little bit because I've got a little bit of silence at the start, and then I'm going to bring this up till the yellow line bumps in, and that's all I need. This song starts loud. As you can see, it's very particularly loud. So before we do anything, I'm actually going to go and hit my envelope tool and shrink it so that I can see where the peaks are. And have a quick listen. Our album, Gallery of Suicide. You're listening to BBBfm Community Radio. All right, I'm happy with that. So these are sort of a collection of what you could call standard maneuvers in preparing a show. We're going to dump files in. We're going to add in our spots and stingers in between, at various intervals between the songs, and we're going to add in our little pre-announced, back-announced sections in between songs as well. So let's just zoom out. That's basically all the steps and stages of doing this. And then you just assemble that out until you have the show that you want. I tend to do this in this exactly as I've done here. I figure out what the music is. I bring the music into the session. I figure out what stingers and sponsors I want where, and I put them in. And then I do possibly voiceovers to tell people what I'm playing and stuff like that. So I would. So the one more thing, I haven't included any sponsorships. All right, let's just grab one of those. So, and again, one of the peculiar aspects of the sponsorships folder is station promo is going to go up one, sponsors. So basically, based on your running sheet, looking at you would have perhaps 2, 3, or 4 sponsors that you need to include in your show. Where they fall in your show doesn't matter, but you just need to make sure that they're going to be in there so that they go to air and that the sponsors get what they pay for. So let's it'll do a thing when I drag it in as well. It's going to take it to the start of the session, and I then need to sort of move it These files are a bit longer than the stingers. The stingers are so small they almost disappear, and I have to zoom in on them to find them. But say Battery World, let's drag that in. Boom. It's in stereo, which is useful. I'm going to leave it in that folder, but I'm going to possibly rearrange the order of these folders. If I can, these tracks, if I can. I'm not sure that I can. Anyway, I'll just rename it. I'm going to call it Sponsors Stereo. Learn how to type one day. Okay. And drop that somewhere. I don't know, let's put it out here between Cannibal Corpse and Captain Beefheart. For those of you who don't like my taste in music, that's just too bad. Donnie Darko. Let's just click here for a sec. Go back to my selecting tool. Click here for a sec. I'm going to zoom in. Control 1, Control 1, Control 1, so I can see what's going on around it. I've just noticed that when I click in the timeline, if I click out here with my selector tool, it takes the thing, the sort of the playhead to that spot. If I actually click in the timeline itself, the time bar up the top here, it'll play automatically. I'm sure Battery World would appreciate coming after that song.
Battery World Gawler offer expert advice and a huge range of batteries and power accessories, from the smallest watch to the largest truck. Torches, tools, mobile phones, cameras, boats, caravans, gophers and forklifts. Guaranteed you'll get the battery you need. We can customise solutions like dual battery kits and portable fridges, cables and terminals, and we operate...
Anyway, you get the idea. So, unmute everything. All right, so let's say we've been through all that. We've been through all these processes. We've got all our songs lined up. We've got all our voiceovers in the right places. We've got all our sponsors in. We've got all our beginnings and ends of all our songs all carefully prepared. We're done. We're finished. We've arrived at, I don't know, whatever the required time is. Oops. Carving Knife of Liberation. That's a good song. Whatever the required time is, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever. And we're done. So we'll just zoom out again. Zoom in again a little bit. Zoom, view, zoom to selection. I thought there was a zoom the zoom out to everything hotkey. I can't remember what that is at the moment. I'll have to find it in the manual somewhere. So yeah, don't be afraid to go to the manual. The manual's great, particularly for finding what the hotkeys are about things. Zooming out. All right, so we're done there. All right, so the next bit, basically, once we're finished, you got all your tracks all unmuted so that everything can be heard. All right, when we go to File, the next step, basically with the finishing step, we can save our project. Let's say, for example, you're only halfway done, for example, and you're going to come back to it tomorrow. What you're going to do is you're going to save your project and give it a name, probably the name of the show and the date or something. So saving the project just kind of saves all the work we've done in this window, so that when I can come back to Audacity and I can open Audacity again and it'll all be here and I can continue editing. But to actually get a file out, the rendered file, the finished file, I have to go to Export. I'm going to export, and as we see here, we have a collection of different file types to export to. In this case, because we're going to send it over the internet, I need it to be a manageable file size. A WAV file is going to be huge. Like a WAV file is basically a gigabyte every 100 minutes. Which is much bigger than an MP3 file. So we're going to export as an MP3 file. We're going to. Oh, looks like I've already started doing this somewhere. But notice how it sort of grabbed the name of the first file that I first song file that I dumped in, right? So I'm going to change that to be the show file. It's going to the show name, random show for whatever today's date is it the 19th, 1901/22. That's the kind of code that I use for dates. So I'm going to use it as a that'll be fine. 192 kilobits is also very good quality. You can go smaller for smaller file sizes. 160K is also good. 128 is about as low as I would go. And if you go below that, back to 96, 64, blah, 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 you're really going to see a major drop in audio quality. By the time you get down to, say, 64 and 32, it sounds like AM radio. It sounds like a phone call. You don't want that. You want it to sound like a CD. You want it to sound... So one idea is that I'm actually going to render it at a higher bitrate than all the files that I have. So most of my files will be 128. The voiceover stuff that I've recorded is in a temporary file at a much higher quality, and I'm going to render the whole thing out at 192 in order to preserve the quality of those audio files and to have my voice in good quality. It's going to be stereo, blah, blah, blah. So pretty much everything here is all done. What folder am I in? Documents, Audacity. I want to actually put this on the desktop in my the project that I'm working on. BBBfm pre-record tutorial is where I'm going to go with that one. Now, so this is the file name and the file type. Clearly, you got to get this right. The next window is meta tags, because we're making an MP3. It has meta tags. These are the things that are above and beyond the file name, the like properties essentially of the file. And believe it or not, Jazzler and Winamp and iTunes, they use these. So I'm going to put my artist is just going to be the station. The track title is going to be random show for the date. It's the same as before. It was 1901/22. And I'm going to leave the rest of them blank. I'm going to get rid of that. All I really want in place is the artist and the track title. These are the important bits that must be in the meta tag. You can skip over this window. I don't recommend skipping over this window. Please don't do that. Please put in the meta tags. Okay, we're pretty much done. It's going to take a little while to render that out, and then it'll dump that file into my project file that I'm working in. Okie dokie. Right, now that we've done that, we should be able to go and find that file and prepare it to upload. So here's my folder that I made. Here's the file that I've just rendered out. And what we want to do now is go to our Google Drive and upload it. So in this case, this is the production folder, production drive. So I'm actually going to use my personal one. And I'm going to make a new folder. It's going to be called pre-recorded shows, pre-recorded radio, I'll call that. Pre-recorded radio, enter. And it's going to make a folder for me somewhere. Where is it? Folders. All right, we go in there. All right. Now, all I have to do to upload is to drop that file in my Google Drive folder. It's going to go uploading the file here. Again, that's going to take a couple of minutes. And now it's completed that upload, and we can see it in our folder now. So that means that we've uploaded it to our Google Drive in the cloud. Now the next stage is to share it to the radio station so that I can download it from that Google Drive. So we're going to right click, we're going to go to share. Right, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the production folder's email address. Production, BBFm01 gmail.com. Oh, there it is. It says it's got it. Right, and then I'm going to hit send. Right. And then I will get an email that tells me that someone just shared a file to me, and then I will go down the station and shared with me. Here we go. It's there already, because that did not transfer the file to my drive. That does not take up any of my 15 gig of space either. That's in your 15 gigs of space. And but from here, I'm able to right click on this, and I'm down to go to download here, and I can download this file, and then we go into the subsequent stages of uploading it into our server at the radio station, and then bringing it into the Jazzler database, and then scheduling it in the Jazzler autopilot. That's pretty much the whole story. I hope that this makes sense to you. And again, I'll put timestamps in this video so that you can see how it's broken up into all these steps and stages, and you can go to the bit that you need to work on at any particular point in time. Thank you very much. Any questions? Put them in the comments, please.